So I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself because I think it's important that people understand what my experience is and why I do what I do at Citizens in Recovery. And just share a little bit about my experience because I think it was profound and it really helped me to create what I have created with Citizens in Recovery. So, my parents, when they were 19 and 20 years old, had me, and they were very young, and they should not have had me. Honestly, they were way too young, and it was just not good. So they got divorced when I was 6 years old, and that had a serious impact on me. It really kind of crushed my spirit in a way. And from that point on, I was so sad. And my constant belief or idea about life was that they needed to get back together in order for me to feel good. And of course, that never happened. My dad remarried. My mom ended up marrying a few different times. And so I was always left with this feeling of sadness. And my dad was a salesman. He was trying to climb the corporate ladder and really make a great life for himself and make a great life for us. And he did the best he could. And when it came to raising me, he really tried to motivate me and inspire me to be the best person I could be. Unfortunately, the way that I reacted to his methods was not actually positive. And I always took what he said in a shameful way, and I felt bad about how I did things. And when he was trying to tell me, you need to be more positive, you need to focus more, you need to study more, I took it as I'm not doing enough, I'm not being good enough, I'm a bad son. And that really shaped who I started to become and how I started to interact with the world. And I started to become this guy who really just wanted approval from people. And I was always trying to please people and make them like me because I felt like I wasn't good enough. And on top of that, we were constantly moving around. So I ended up going to 13 different schools. And I literally didn't go to one school for a full year until fourth grade. So kindergarten, first, second, third, I was jumping around. So I was always having to make friends. So I was always having to be the funny guy. I was always, just trying to get people to like me. And really what that was trying to seek approval, you know. But when I was at home and I came home, my dad was so busy with work and he had other things on his mind, he really wasn't available emotionally for me, which is what I needed, especially since my parents had divorced and I was a pretty sensitive kid, you know? And I think people, when they're really sensitive, they need that support and guidance, and they need to feel like it's okay to have emotions. Um, Unfortunately, my dad was not like that. You know, he's not that kind of guy. He was a business guy, and he was about facts, and he was very analytical, and that's just the way he operated. Nothing wrong with that, no judgment. I just happen to be someone who feels a little bit more, who's a little bit more emotional. Um, so those two dynamics really were difficult as a child growing up. And unfortunately for me, as I started to develop these coping skills to deal with my emotions, they started to come out as anger and frustration. And I started to act out and I started to get in trouble. And then when I got into high school, I found alcohol and I found drugs. And that became my way of dealing with what was going on inside of me. And over time, it just became a problem. It became much more of a problem for me. And I just started to really struggle. I was a really smart kid. I got straight A's as a kid, and I was a really sweet boy and really nice. And I think a lot of parents really liked me. They thought I was a good kid. I was a good influence on their kids, so it was never a problem with me coming over. Um, but that changed. And the way that I was coping with life and what was going on in my life was starting to impact my behavior. It was starting to impact my emotions. And over time, it started to impact my relationships with people. People didn't want to be around me because I was so angry, or because I was a victim, or because I was feeling sorry for myself about what was happening. And as a young kid growing up, we're learning how to be men. And I really didn't have male role models to teach me how to be a man. It was really more about being macho and that posturing and suck it up and you know don't show your emotions and stop being a little bitch and all that stuff. And that really created a lot of conflict for me because I was really in so much pain inside. I didn't know how to cover that up. So I covered it up with my anger and my machismo and trying to intimidate people. And I'm not a big guy. I'm 6 feet. I weighed like 165, 155, soaking wet. So I wasn't a big guy. But I had humor and I had a good, fun, dynamic personality. So that's what kind of kept me out of trouble. But deep down inside, I was in a lot of pain. So the drugs and alcohol really helped to cover that up. But over time, it caught up with me, and the drugs and alcohol stopped working, and then it really started to spiral downhill. And that's when I really started to feel my pain and let my pain come out and manifest itself in many different ways. Uh, and eventually it just stopped working. And that's when I got clean and sober. And I got sober when I was 26 years old. I'm now 51, so I'll be celebrating 25 years this year. And I'm very proud of that. But the process of recovery has also been a journey. And, they say in 12-step meetings, they say sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. I've always said I'm the sometimes slowly guy because everything I do takes time. I'm always analyzing things and trying to figure it out. And it's been a long process. And I'm so grateful for that because that is what has led me to creating Citizens in Recovery and really uncovering what it is that I'm supposed to be doing here. So, in my next video, I'll talk more about that recovery process. But I wanted to give you a little bit of background about who I was and what led me up to getting into recovery. And from there, we'll uncover the recovery process and what I went through, and more will be revealed. Thanks so much.